scheduled as the guest speaker as well, so we're going to go straight into that. And then we'll proceed with the wreath laying. So, again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're gathered here today in this quiet place, reserved for those who've deserved well of their country, to honour the memory of the air crew and passengers of the Air Rhodesia Viscounts Nyani and Mnyati, who perished in the terrorist attacks of September 1978 and February 1979, exactly this week, the 12th of February. Both aircraft were brought down by SAM-7 Strela missiles fired by terrorist gangs in the Urungwe tribal trust land in the north of Rhodesia. The ground on which we stand today, and which the memorial stands, was made available by the generosity of spirit of the Erfenis Stichting, the Heritage Foundation, and General Opperman, to whom particular thanks are due for his agency in making it possible to erect this memorial on this site, in this special area of the Voortrekker Monument. This memorial became reality through the efforts of Keith Nell, who cannot be with us today, and generous donors. Someone else who can't be here today is Lieutenant Colonel the Reverend Bill Dodgen, who together with Colonel Bill Blakeway conducted the actual memorial service at the crash site in the immediate aftermath. And Bill 2 years ago was called to higher service and gathered to his fathers. So this is a corner of a foreign field that will be forever Rhodesia. In 1978, the international scene, aviation safety and security matters in general were not good. In the 10 years between 69 and 78, there were over 400 reported hijacks involving 75,000 passengers. In the same period, there were at least 75 instances of shots being fired or explosive devices being detonated inside aircraft, in flight or on the ground, sometimes with disastrous consequences. And after a wave of hijackings in the United States between 1968 and 1972, in which aircraft were hijacked and many of them flown to Cuba, the authorities in that country introduced full baggage and body search procedures for every domestic and international flight originating at a US airport, and those are the searches we're familiar with to this day. That proved its worth, and in the following 2 years there were only 3 hijack attempts on aircraft which had taken off in the United States, and all of those failed. So from an international standpoint, the attacks on the Viscounts were just 2 more to be added to the hundreds that had already happened around the world, which may in part account for the deafening silence of which Dean da Costa spoke in his famous sermon in the Anglican Cathedral after the Nyani had been brought down. But inside Rhodesia, the impact was shattering. As a subsequent, much later commentator said, it was Rhodesia's 9/11. Dean da Costa said in his sermon, "Nobody who holds sacred the dignity of human life can be anything but sickened at the events attending the crash of the Viscount Nyani. Survivors have the greatest call on the sympathy and assistance of every other human being. The horror of the crash was bad enough, but that this should have been compounded by murder of the most savage and treacherous sort leaves us stunned in disbelief and brings revulsion to the mind of anyone deserving the name human. This, worse than anything in recent history, stinks in the nostrils of heaven. But are we deafened with the voice of protest from nations which call themselves civilized? We are not. Like men in the story of the Good Samaritan, they pass by on the other side. One listens for loud condemnation by Dr. David Owen, who was then the British Foreign Secretary, himself a medical doctor trained to extend mercy and help to all in need. One listens, and the silence is deafening. One listens for loud condemnation by the President of the United States. It was Jimmy Carter, himself a man from the Bible Baptist belt, and again the silence is deafening. One listens for loud condemnation by the Pope, by the Chief Rabbi, by the Archbishop of Canterbury, by all who love the name of God, and again the silence is deafening. Our natural tendency at such times is to want retribution and reserve and revenge. Captain Stan Hannon, a personal friend and territorial chaplain at that time, published a book in which he reflects on his part in the tragic aftermath. And the title of the book is To Everything a Season, and if you've not read it, it's worth a read. From the Bible book of Ecclesiastes chapter 3. he describes how this news was passed to various people, including John and Beulah Bull, 2 missionary members of his church, during the morning service. They lost their son Jeremy and daughter-in-law Karen, who had been to Kariba on their honeymoon. Tragic story in all the other tragedies. It's instructive that the same passage from Ecclesiastes goes on to say in verse 17, God will bring to judgment both the righteous and the wicked, for there will be a time for every activity, every deed. Shall not the judge of the earth, of all the earth, do right on that great accounting day, when we stand before him, we all stand before him, to give an account of the deeds done here on earth. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord, and I will repay. And so Dean da Costa concluded his sermon. The especial danger, as we look back from our vantage point here in 2025, we can see that the scourge of Marxist terrorism has spread steadily, and those who failed to condemn it, and those who practiced it in 1978 and since, are now reaping some of the consequences of in their own countries and streets. In the last couple of years, we've seen it unleashed yet again in all its horrors in Ukraine. And so, 47 years later, we are gathered here to remember and honor those who lost their lives in those terrible events, and whose lives were and identify with heartfelt sympathy with those whose lives were forever changed by the loss of their loved ones. May God comfort us all and bring the healing that only he can. We will, as we do now, remember them. God bless you all. We're now going to proceed with the reading of the Rolls of Honor. First, Roy Patterson from the SAS will read to us the Roll of Honor for the Hanyani, RH-825, Flight RH-825, which was on the 3rd of September 1978. And then Gary Huxham will follow him with the Roll of Honor for the Amnyati, which was RH-827 on the 12th of February 1979. Thank you.
Crew: Captain John Hood, First Officer Garth Beaumont, Brenda Pearson, Dulcie Esterhazy. Passengers: Jeremy Bull, Corin Bull, Gary Callow, Walter Ferrier, Margaret Ferrier, Malcolm Gillespie, Ramesh Gulab, Shakuntala Gulab, Veena Gulab, Lena Gulab, Dahiben Gulab, Audrey Hewitt, Jeanette Hewitt, Prabhaben Lalu, Neela Lalu, Ramala Lalu, Douglas Loader, Margaret Loader, Keith Loader, Francis Nichols, Joan Nichols, Mark Nichols, Michelle Nichols, Paul Nichols, Ruth Rainey, Roger Seaton, Cheryl Tilley, Veena Trinder, Lida van Benningen, Mary van Meulen, Peter van Meulen, Alison van Meulen, Ronald van Meulen, Leanne Volker, Matthew Volker, Margaret Ray, Marion Ray, John Ray, Dawn Young, Walter Brown, Elizabeth Brown, Annes Barkhazen, Frederick Barkhazen.
Crew: Captain Jan Duplessis, First Officer Michael Moorman, Catherine Craig Smith, Caroline Duchesne, Regina Chiguada. Passengers: Francis Della, excuse my pronunciation, Della Prey, Julius Descampa, Adelaide Descampa, Edie Marie, Stephen Marie, Robert Plover, Desmond Boyd, Gladys Boyd, Noel Boyd, Ian Boyd, Andre Boyd, Leonie Boyd, Lynette Ballantyne, Arthur Bensusan, Brenda Betts, Mark Betts, Russell Betts, Annette Bellington, George Dardigan, Ursula Dardigan, Paul Dalpot, Ian Dempsey, Derek Eben, Edwin Fairley, Nancy Fairley, Donnoa Golden, Andrew Harding, Andrea Mason, Susan Morgan, Beauty Mazondo, Neville Powell, Loreen Quetzi, Lynn Reese, Gillian Tabor, Paul Tasker, John Teed, Sheila Teed, Joanna Viljoen, Denise Viljoen, Deirdre Wakefield, Loris Zucchini, Martha Blichnout, Bertrand Duram, Margaret Davies, Peter Gray, Michael Herringer, Ronald Issett, William Francis, Christian Goby, Patricia Ings, Linda Thompson Mann, Hendrik van der Merwe, Robert Vertek, Edward Wigg.
Gary, we're now going to proceed with the laying of the various forces wreaths. First of all, from the British South African Police, Rob Bristow. The Rhodesian Air Force, Marcus Main Bailey. The Rhodesian Light Infantry, Jimmy Gallagher. One Commando RLI, Gary Hexam. C, Rhodesia Squadron 22 Special Air Service Association. Then we're privileged to have various members of the South African regimental organisations with us today. So first of all, Pretoria Canopy Association. For the 8th SA Defence Association, Ben Greyland. the Savannah Association, Erik van Rensburg. For the Viscount Down Association, Trish Brownlow. For the Rhodesian civilian population, Debbie Huxon. For Rhodesian National Parks, Dave Bongwe Russell. For all the animals, Roche, Vermaak and Wolfie. Wolf. Thank you, that was special. Now there's an opportunity for anyone who wants to lay a private wreath. Off. That's cool.